Item B is the Adopt a Tree pilot program, which I am in support of, but since I do not sit on the administrative committee, I didn't hear this in committee and have a couple of questions. So if Tom Grundon, I believe, would come forward, and Tom, you might, if you would, give a brief synopsis of the proposed program, and then I will ask my question.
If it's okay, I'd
or
like
or Nils,
defer to
whichever.
Nils Peterson,
Sure.
our august member of the
So the idea behind Adopt a Tree is to create a mechanism.
Nils, could you raise the microphone up, please?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Is that going to be better?
It's better. Thank you.
Great. The idea behind Adopt a Tree is to create a mechanism to channel the volunteer energy of the community to help the city's urban forest. And we worked through this in the Tree Commission. The idea was that we would like to see, ultimately, the forest grow, the commission would, but staff capacity to do that is limited. So we thought, is there a way to bring volunteer energy to help with some of the kinds of tasks that volunteers might be able to do that could relieve staff from those tasks so that staff could work on other tasks? Our real goal is a net gain to the city by these volunteers contributing. The notion was a pilot project to see if we could indeed both elicit volunteers and produce a net gain, and then to come back to the council, work through the commissions, and then come back to the council to say this did or didn't work and we'd like to extend the process further. We want to recognize the volunteers who are involved in this pilot, and the thought was to use the Arbor Day celebration as an already existing mechanism where we recognize other tree-related activities as the venue for doing that. The notion is that perhaps a volunteer would identify some trees that they were interested in, but more likely that the city forester would identify a project, whether it's new trees being planted at Otness Park or some other thing, and that then the volunteer and the trees would get matched up, and the volunteer would report back periodically to the forester in terms of tasks that were completed. We're very clear that we don't want volunteers using chemicals, spraying or doing other sorts of things like that, and we don't want volunteers getting their feet off the ground. Working from the ground seems to be the way that we could minimize the liability risk to the city and the hazard risk to the volunteer. But there are lots of things that might be mulching, weeding. Some trees send up little water sprouts that need to be removed, or the lawnmowers get them all. So a variety of tasks like that that we thought volunteers could definitely help with and help in ways that were safe.
Great.
Okay, thank you. The question I've got has to do with signing for the volunteers, and this is primarily for the council members to hear a proposal of mine and to make their decision whether or not they wish to incorporate it into this program. I made a comment to the mayor this afternoon talking about this, that I believe the reason that I guess probably all the states do it 20, 25 years ago took up, trash pickup along the sides of highways and posted signage, that the value in that in the long run, of course, is picking up the trash, but the signs certainly bring to the attention of the motoring public that somebody's picking up the trash. Your friends, your neighbors, businesses, organizations are going to have to come out there, and possibly it keeps people from throwing more out just to make them pick it up. So I think there's value in that signage. The same thing occurred to me about this proposed program, that signage for an adopted tree or group of trees, a single sign, not a brass plaque, not a brass medallion, but probably a small 6x9 sign made by the city's shop on a small metal stake, stuck down, might remind people that the program exists and that it might encourage other people to want to join the program. I understand the proposal for doing it annually, recognizing people, but I've attended those and they're not that well attended. If the newspaper or the press happens to pick it up, that's good, gets it out there a little bit. But that was my only concern about this, was that it's possibly lacking the recognition factor to encourage other people to adopt a tree. And I would be interested in whether or not any of the council people would like to sign on, or y'all think it's not a good idea. And I'll vote for the program as proposed, but would like to adopt the signage as an amended motion.
Any discussion, Wayne?
Well, this is a idea that the Tree Commission has been working up for quite a few months now. Nils, I think you actually brought this before the Tree Commission, did you not?
Mm-hmm. About a year ago, I'd say.
Pardon me?
About a year ago, I would
about
say.
a year ago. In regards to Walter's suggestion, in your studies on other communities that have done this, do they do signing, or that you know of?
The one that I'm most familiar with is the New York Million Trees program. And they do not seem to do, they have a web presence where one can discover and volunteer and things like that. The scale of what they're doing is clearly much bigger than what we're doing. I guess I would have two answers, Walter. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the thought that with the Adopt a Highway, there's both, I can learn that this group is here and cares about this community because they have adopted a segment of highway. And maybe there's even as you suggested, an incentive to the motorist to would-be toss something to, not in this section that's picked up by the Elks Club, I'm not going to do it here. But there may even be another dimension, which is if you're the entity that has adopted the highway, you have a certain motivation, since your name is on, to really try to make sure on those events that you do a good job of doing what you do. So I appreciate those aspects. Two thoughts. One, as a pilot project, how much do we want to invest in city resources in trying this? Which may not be, there may be only one volunteer and one tree and one sign, so it may not be a big thing. And the other is, personally, I would like to adopt the fruit trees between Steiner and Mountain View along the Paradise Path. Clean up under them, other sorts of things. I have the long-range vision that...
You wouldn't get 20 signs, man.
No, I don't think I get 20 signs.
That's not the proposal.
And the question would be, sort of, it raises a challenge, where to put the sign. If, in the highway case, you go to milepost 3 and you go to milepost 9 and you put 2 signs and you're done.
I think they only put 1, but that's beside the point. Yeah.
But the point would be, it just raises a new challenge for us to sort out. I'm not opposed to the idea of recognition and the things that might come from it, but just the logistics of if somebody has adopted some smattering of thing that makes sense to the city forester, how is it signed?
Any other discussion?
Well, I'm just thinking about what kind of temporary signage you could do on a pilot program, because, people will be very enthusiastic and do something for a short while and then it doesn't happen again. And I was thinking if there was something that the city could produce that would be inexpensive and also temporary, and in that sense it'd be something like basically a long zip tie with a name, something on it around the trunk of the tree. But that way it's not on a mile poster, it's not I think it's a I'm thinking, well, if you want to do this, if it's a pilot program, why bother until the end of the year? But then if you don't advertise it, then the pilot program won't survive past the end of the year. So I think maybe rather than give direction, I think maybe encourage the Tree Commission to maybe come up with some creative ideas for this, and maybe potentially figure out a low-cost way to do it. But I like your idea of promoting it.
Well, if I may,
Please.
Tyler Palmer is out there somewhere in the crowd. I love this crowd. And I'm not going to, unless somebody wants Tyler to come all the way up to the podium to tell y'all what he told me when I asked, can you make small metal signs in the city shop to do this? And he said, yes, he could. The blanks, the labor, what it takes to make one, I think he said was in the $20 to $30 range per each.
Ouch. Per tree, that's a lot of money.
Well, yeah, if you do 200 trees, you're talking real money. If you do one, you're not talking any money. Maybe something like you say with zip ties, and I don't want to overthink this. I mean, we've got a fairly short agenda, and I'm not doing this to try to lengthen it, trust me.
So the one question that hasn't been answered is, what's the approximate count of trees that would, in the urban forest, that
could
would
be
be potentially part of this
Of
program?
adopters, not trees. If Nels adopts 20, he only would get one sign.
Right,
So
but
adopt-
conceivably.
Unless he runs for
But how-
something.
What's our count on that?
So, trees that are not candidates for adoption are those that are in the tree lawns of residences. The resident, the homeowner is expected by the city to take care of that tree. So the kinds of trees we're talking about are along Paradise Path. They're in areas where city has right-of-way, and we don't have an obvious landowner as the caretaker. Those are scattered all over the city. And for an exact number, I guess, I don't know. I would say, let's try the other. Let's try to hope for 100 trees adopted. And if you're looking for a scale, 100 trees adopted and 20 adopters. Let's try that. If that gives you magnitudes to think about costs of things.
Okay, and I saw Tom's hand next.
Well, I was just thinking that I appreciate both the need for recognition. I think that's a helpful motivator. And I'm also interested in what you're saying about logistics in terms of the time to do that recognition. I wonder if maybe and I think Sue might be onto something about just, encouraging that to happen. I wonder if maybe in the short term we recognize that somehow on the website, as you mentioned, Mills, and perhaps if it does grow to the point where we're talking about 20 adopters or 10 adopters or some larger number, that we actually, start doing some on-site recognition, but maybe we don't try to pin that down right now and just, encourage that recognition be incorporated as a goal of the project.
And how
Dan?
about the
Oh.
pilot be charged with figuring out how to do that on a more sustainable basis?
I like that.
Dan?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the we approve the pilot program for the first year, and along with that, direct the commission to come up with some sort of signage idea in that time frame. So after the first year, if the pilot program's still working, then we'll figure out a signage idea at that point.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Okay, so we have Dan's motion, we have Tom's second, and further discussion, I saw your hand, Tim.
It's been said.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, no more discussion before voting? All right, we'll start this one with you, Tim.
Aye.
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 That motion
Thank you.
carries. Thank you, and please extend our
Thank you.
thanks to the tree commissioners as well.